It is my pleasure and thank you for joining us on the Coffee Court. This is where we digest and ask critical questions, especially questions that matter. We discuss the expansion of the East African community. The journey of ESC began as a small journey, but as we talk right now, several key players have come on board and several other key players have shown intentions of joining the board. What does this expansion mean? That and most terms are discussion. Mr. Simon Kaheru is here with us. He sits on some of these boards. He's here to digest for us matters regarding the impact of the expansion. Mr. Simon, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good evening, Fred. Good evening, viewers as well.
It's a pleasure. You hold so many positions. What exactly do you hold when it comes to issues of the ESC?
Okay, at the ESC, I am on the board of the East African Business Council. I'm the Uganda chapter chair of the East African Business Council, which automatically makes me vice chair of the Business Council across East Africa.
Okay. The journey began as a small journey. Now we have over 7 countries on board.
Seven countries, yes.
What does this expansion mean?
Well, it means a great deal for, first of all, every single East African. And part of what we're trying to do, all of us, all the different organs and structures of the ESC, the East African community, is to get every individual in East Africa to understand what this community is about, what the purpose of integration is, and why it's important for all of us, businesses and individuals. One of the easiest things to think about is when we are 7 nations of this nature, spanning from the coast in Mombasa, all the way to the coast of West Africa. That's how big the community is. It means we are a much more important trading bloc for the rest of the world. Just imagine that wide chunk of land. We are trading as one. If we can operate as one economic unit, then we are a much more attractive force for anybody who wants to trade with the continent of Africa, because all of us as one are easier to approach than all these different individual 54, 58 African countries. Secondly, these are 300 million people. 300 million official census. If you go with an unofficial census, you're probably going to talk 400 million people. Those are 400 million people who are each a producing unit. Each of them is a market. You see? Each of them presents an opportunity for trade, growth, development. Even if you're thinking as an investor who's coming in to set up, let's say, manufacturing, you now have 400 million people to choose from, to employ. You have 400 million people to be your first market, your first port of sale for what you produce. But then, even most importantly, this is today the most important economic bloc in the world. We are actually the biggest in the world. And our rate of integration has been called extremely successful, even though from a business point of view, I don't think it is that successful. But all the analysis says it's been successful. Now, as that most important trading economic trading bloc in the world, we hold a position that makes us, like I said earlier, more attractive, but puts us at the table of giants for discussion.
Which giants are you talking about?
Look at the United States of America. Today we've had it for more than 15 years, the Africa Growth Opportunities Act. AGOA is being offered to individual countries. So countries as individuals take advantage of these free trade, free export, quotas. China has just opened up for individual countries. Uganda is one of them. If these trading arrangements are opened up for the bloc at large, we have a better opportunity of putting together what we've got and capturing those markets. What do we have in East Africa? Besides, of course, our beautiful weather, we are now seated outside having an interview at the drop of a hat, no problem. We have the best food. We have the best arable land, so we can produce any agricultural product as a raw material. We have extremely hardworking entrepreneurial people. Okay? We have the capacity to produce innovative products. We've not yet gotten to the point of innovation as you see in Europe and Asia, but we have that capacity if it is groomed. That means that we can, and of course it's cheaper to operate here than it is to operate in Europe or the US. If we can fix certain things, then we should be able to go out there with our products.
What do you mean by
bring in wealth?
What do you mean if you say if we can fix certain things?
There's a lot that needs fixing across
and what are those
East Africa
in particular?
One of them that we keep talking about, for instance, is our inability to come together, to integrate. Integration should have happened 25 years ago. This year we're celebrating 25 years. It should have happened 25 years ago. It's a no-brainer. But there's a lot of thinking that keeps us in these small cocoons. Actually, at some level, some people even think of tribe. Then others think of clan. Others think of only my country. That small time thinking is what stops us from growing as this big unit I'm talking about of 300 million people. And that's what impedes our progress. Today, we still have issues between, for instance, one country and another. Within this one community where we all sign, one country blocks and says you cannot bring your milk, you cannot bring your eggs, which doesn't make sense. Then they wake up and realize, okay, we actually do need your milk and eggs because we don't have, so now bring.
So would you want them entertain your milk if it's not of quality? Would you want them entertain your flour?
That's not the point. The point is,
because
if it's
no
not high quality, fix the quality. That is how sensible people think.
Who to fix
They don't
the
just say stop. All of us as one community.
No, because you have the privilege, you sit on the Uganda Manufacturers Board.
Yes,
so you actually have the privilege to make these things right. So who to set the pace?
No. Don't say we have the privilege. We have the challenge to set it right. But we need government policy to also be positioned in such a way that when there's an issue of quality, as you stated, it is fixed by all of us as the community. Blockades do not help. Blockades simply impede progress. Instead, we need to be getting together and saying, your quality is not good enough. How do we up it? That's why today we're talking about harmonization of standards. You know, it's one of the crucial targets we've got as the East African community.
So that's why I said I called it a privilege because do you think Fred has the privilege to address this? It is you and the team and those you can influence.
Fred should get into manufacturing and therefore create that privilege. That's the other message that I keep telling people. All of us should think about going into manufacturing at any level. Manufacturing is a value chain.
It is.
End to end. You may not want to come in as a Coca-Cola because that's already too big. But down the line, where does Coca-Cola get their juice puree from?
From the gardens.
So, how about you get into manufacturing at that level? When you get into manufacturing at that level, you will say, but my mango puree needs to fit standards so that I can sell to Coca-Cola, but also sell to another factory in Tanzania. What are the standards in Uganda? What are the standards in Tanzania? If there's a difference, now Fred has an interest in making sure there is harmony, because that increases your access to markets. Do you see how it works?
Yes, I do.
So it doesn't become a problem of UMA or CAM, the Kenyan Association of Manufacturers, or CTI in Tanzania. It should be an East African problem that should be fixed for every single individual East Africa, because the opportunities are for all of us.
If we are to widen on the pillars of the East African community, the four of them, to what extent have we performed?
There's actually been a study released. I believe that the last study was released in 2020, that rated us, again, I said, I sometimes question these studies.
Rated Uganda or rated all
the East
other
African
countries?
community, because it's looking at the regional trading blocks. Rated us as the best regional trading community in the world. And I question that, because there's a lot that's still not happening.
Exactly, that's what I would also say. With all the trade barriers and many of those.
Look at something as simple as the trade barriers are obvious, we can see them. But even things that people don't think about. Having an open skies policy. Why don't we have an open skies policy? Why is it so difficult to fly from Burundi to Tanzania, from Uganda to Zanzibar?
I would think you would actually have answers for these.
It's the government.
You and the
yes,
team.
It's the government. Our governments have failed to realize the need to think East Africa, or they are being slow to do so. Shortly after integration had gone into high gear, you started seeing each country opening their own national airline. Now that's a good first step, if the next step is to create an East African airline. But if this first step is so that we protect Uganda Airlines and Rwanda Air and Kenya Airways, then we're not getting it right. And today that's what we're suffering. The reason it's more expensive for you to fly from Burundi to Tanzania than from Burundi to Dubai is because of those policies. And those are the things we are saying need to be fixed urgently in order to grow business. Right now, it's therefore easier for you to go and do business in Turkey than to do business next door with your brothers and sisters here. What does that mean? What are you going to bring from Turkey? Imported products. When you bring those imported products, the people making them just across the border here are not going to sell. How are we building a community?
So you've heard of pillars of the regional integration, common currency, political federation. I will still ask, to what extent have we performed? In terms of
like I said, we've not performed well, in my opinion. Look, the customs union is not yet working the way it should. Monetary union, do we have one?
Not yet, but I've heard it's a discussion on board.
It's been a discussion for 25 years, Fred. We should stop sitting here and saying...
It's not an event.
It's in progress.
It is a process.
No, it's not. Some of these things are no-brainers. The political federation, We all understand our politicians, and that's going to be a difficult question for a long time to come. But the positive thing is that if the customs union is made to work, and if we keep bringing, and that's why the business community, the private sector is important in this, if we keep showing people the advantages of integration, okay, from a day-to-day point of view, and that's why Somalia is joining, that's why the DRC joined, that's why South Sudan joined. If we keep showing them, then you will see integration happening by default. We actually will get to a point where we have East African community integration in spite of the politics. Today what gets in the way is the politics.
Is it just about joining, this South Sudan joining, Somalia showing interest, Kenya is on board, Rwanda is on... Is it just about joining? Is it just about the number? Is it just about having so many come on board? It's just having... could it be just have a few on board, but few that matter and few that impact?
No. You must have the numbers. That's very crucial. That's why when I told you about having 300 to 400 million people as a market, very important. We command more authority than if you have 50 million people. So having more countries join is extremely important. Today we're talking about the Africa Free Continental Trade Area. If 7 of these countries are already trading as one, we command more authority on the Africa Free Continental Trade Area, and we actually will implement it faster than if you have each of us operating separately. So let's not discount the importance of countries joining. It's very important. But it's not just about that.
It's about what?
We need more. You need integration to be, like when I talked about the value chain, you need integration to be real. You need to say, yes, there's a customs union. After the customs union, how do we do everything else? There should be free movement of persons. Good. How do you facilitate free movement of persons if you don't have an open skies policy? If some countries are not recognizing the national IDs of others to allow them to cross borders? How do we integrate without a common currency? Not having a common currency is a problem. It impedes trade. A trader from Kenya has to change money to come to Uganda, then change money again to go to Rwanda, then change again to go to the DRC. So how are we one community? How is that person going to trade his products from there to the DRC and make money? Even just doing the mathematics is difficult. So that is necessary. Political federation is also necessary because we need to have one vision, one aspiration, and we all need to get together and focus on, today we're talking about security. DRC, Rwanda, how much of that discussion is necessary when we are trying to grow the economies? Why is it happening? Where is the leadership? Today it's the EAC Heads of State Summit, which is rotational, good. But should we still continue like that? If we had one federal system, the way you've got in the United States, would we not be speaking differently?
So how are other integrations working and operating? What is it that other countries in other integrations are doing that we are not doing as EAC member states?
Let's not look at all of them. Let's take a very quick example of the European Union. You remember it said as the European Economic Commission. It then became the European Union, and it has grown in leaps and bounds to the extent that their most visible intervention in Uganda in the last couple of years, of course we've gone through a political election cycle, has been the EU political, what do they call it? DGF, Democratic Governance Fund. EU. Remember that it was cancelled at one point and became a big story?
True.
Was it an individual country that was sending money for that fund?
It wasn't.
It was the EU. So the EU got together and said, this is what our intervention point is going to be in Uganda. So all those different countries.
Can't we get to a point where all of us, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan?
Fred, don't say can't we. That's what we need. That's what we want. But we are moving too slowly to get there.
And you see,
even the EU, wait, even the EU has had reversals. The UK, what was Brexit? You remember what Brexit was? They said we no longer want. And why? Because of balkanization in their brains. They started saying people are taking our jobs. Shallow thinking.
So why can't we be good students to learn from what the rest are not doing so that for us we can better? Why can't we be better students?
That's exactly why I like programs like this, because we now get the opportunity to tell everybody out there, you have a role to play. But also to get them to challenge the governments. Not just our government in Uganda, all the governments across East Africa, to do better, to implement these things that will grow trade across East Africa.
And the way I also disagree is when you say everybody, because I don't think, yes, we each one of us has a role, but your role, President Museveni's role, the former Speaker of Parliament's role is not
The
equally.
current First Deputy Prime Minister,
Yeah.
Minister of ESF.
The Right Honorable Rebecca
Kadaga,
Alitwala
yes.
Kadaga. You can't say his role is the same as my role. So when you say it is our role, I may disagree with you.
Yeah, but I've not said that everybody's role is the same. But you agree that everybody has a role to play.
He has.
That's the point. However small or big your role is, play it. If you're a Ugandan trader and you're not thinking about first increasing the quality of your product, then you're not playing your role. You don't need anyone to tell you to increase the quality of your product. How are you going to sell?
We have 9 legislators that represent Uganda
At Yala.
at the East African Legislative
Yes.
Assembly. You think they've done us that good?
They've only just taken their positions now, so
The
I
new
can't
ones?
read. Yeah, the new ones, I can't read them. But that is one of the arms of the East African community. Yala does their job. They legislate. And we meet them as the East African Business Council regularly. That's their job. They do legislation. Today, the common external tariff, for instance, is functional. Why? Because Yala has done its job. Because the individual governments have done their jobs as far as implementing that common external tariff goes. Let's do everything. Let's not continue this Ugandan thing of Kastan Kozeko 60%. No. Do 100%. There's no time.
So how does the UZIA, Uganda Small, the Federation for Small and Medium, the UMA, the Chamber of Commerce, the CACITA, and many of these benefit from all this? Because we tend to think these are your things as the huge players in the business sector.
Actually, speaking for the East African Business Council, those are our members. UZIA, the Uganda Manufacturers Association, PSFU, those are our members. The East African Business Council is the umbrella body on the East African platform, taking all the issues from the different countries. Our members are the private sectors in the individual countries. And how do they benefit? We are opening up opportunities for them. When I talk about the open skies policy, when I go and meet President Kagame or President Uhuru Kenyatta, all of us as the East African Business Council board, and we say, please fix this problem. We are fixing the problem so that trader who is making a Kitengi shirt can sell his shirt, her shirt. Mine is made by a Ugandan lady called Evelyn Kogonza. Free publicity. Can sell her shirt in Tanzania as well as in Hoima. You see, that's how they benefit. They also benefit by being told this is where the opportunities are. Many Ugandans don't know that these opportunities exist. Many Ugandans are actually trading across borders.
Maybe because the publicity
know.
is not that much.
Correct. And that's why I thank SMART24, because this is what we need every day. So that people get up and say, hey, there's even Africa Free Continental Trade Area coming there. Hey, so I can take my shirts to Ghana. Yes. Let me prepare. How do I prepare? Do research, study, sign up for funding, get involved. Because these opportunities are here now.
What is it that the president should need to put into perspective? I'm talking about the principal, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, the president.
It's not only him, and to be honest, the president, you had President Ruto of Kenya
Because he's
him
the principal,
the father of the region. He already has it down pat. He has told us everything. He has done everything. And he continues to do it. It is the rest of the government bureaucracy in the different countries that needs to get together and fix these things. I'm one of those people who does not like saying, the president has to do this. No, no, no. The president delegates authority to ministers. You know this? That's what the executive does. The ministers have a whole team of bureaucrats, technocrats, who are supposed to implement certain things. If I come here and I'm telling people that flying from Burundi to Tanzania is more expensive than flying from Burundi to Dubai, there's no study needed. This is obvious stuff. You learn this in secondary school economics. So what's a government technocrat waiting for?
As we plan to wind up, if all these are fixed, what is the future of the East African community?
It is still bright. Like you just said, Somalia is joining. We are getting more countries coming in, and they are bringing in more opportunities for all of us in East Africa. But these challenges that we're identifying, because we keep identifying, we keep hitting, they are going to be fixed. That's for sure.
Your parting shots as we wind up this exclusive interview.
My parting shot, first of all, thank you for creating this opportunity. Please make this a daily discussion. Let's stop talking about sensational things. All media houses that report on economics, business, East African community integration, this is what we need in this country, in this region. So keep doing a good job. But everybody out there, I'm going to insist, we all have a role to play. So get out there and understand what this East African community integration means for you and how you can benefit yourself and the community at large.
Thank you, Mr. Simon Kaheru. He sits on the board, especially that looks at matters regarding the East African community. Developing Uganda as a country It's not my responsibility alone. It's not his responsibility alone. It is not only the responsibility of the principal, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. It is a collective responsibility, and this is the Coffe Court. My name is Fred Makuya.